teaching force that can be retained, right? Right now, we are losing veteran educators after we have cultivated and developed their skills to other school districts. What this fact finder report says is that there is some infrastructure within the Chicago public schools to begin undoing the harm that has been done for years. Now, listen, the report itself will always be insufficient and flawed because of what it is. And it cannot replace a collective bargaining agreement negotiated between two parties. This fact-finding report is the imagination of Rahm Emanuel, Arnie Duncan, and education deformers like them way back when Karen Lewis was the president at this union. And what it does is that it tries to only make the collective bargaining process about money. However, this fact-finding report goes a bit above and beyond that call. And what it does is it provides us with some renewed optimism that we can begin to push Chicago Public Schools in a place of centering our students in what they need in this report. I think, is that a fair representation? So now I'm going to bring up our lawyer, Thad Goodchild, our deputy general counsel. You see, I'm a little thrown off because I didn't, think that I was going to read what I, just read. But I'm going to bring Thad up because he's going to, speak about the legal fact-finding report from a lawyer's perspective. But to that point, I might actually add that even a labor lawyer tasked with putting together a fact-finding report believes that the Chicago Public Schools can begin to replace librarians in our schools.
Thank you, Stacy. Good evening, everybody. My name is Thad Goodchild. I'm Deputy General Counsel for the CTU. So, as Stacy mentioned, fact-finding became part of state law under Senate Bill 7 in 2010 at the urging of Rahm Emanuel, Arnie Duncan, and corporate education reformers, and it was explicitly intended to diminish the rights of Chicago's educators. The statutory fact-finding process and related impasse procedures, drafted into law by CPS's own attorneys, are intended to depress contract settlements and impede the rights of educators to bargain for adequate learning conditions for their students and working conditions for themselves. But in the report issued last night, even a third-party arbitrator, CPS, agreed to oversee fact-finding. Applying the law CPS wrote, found CPS can put significantly more into schools than CPS has been proposing to do, rejecting its claims that it can't do anything more than what it's offered. The fact finder acknowledges that he was tasked with implementing a statute designed to force recommendations in line with CPS's proposed contract settlement, which prevents him from recommending his personal ideal of where the parties should end up in their negotiations. Nevertheless, despite these constraints, the fact finder has both exploded the myth that CPS can't afford to put more resources into schools and further recommends some significant improvements in educator compensation and necessary additional staffing for schools. The fact finder rightly notes that CPS consistently signs labor contracts despite claiming it lacks the funds to afford them, as CPS has been doing for months. He noted, for example, that the board claimed to lack sufficient funding for the 2016 and 2019 contracts, yet was able to implement them. He further found that CPS claims it faces a $750 million deficit for the upcoming school year, but at the fact-finding hearing, the CPS chief budget officer admitted that closing the budget gap is, quote, in the realm of the doable, end quote, because CPS can expect to receive more funding than it admits to. The fact finder has also made recommendations for contract terms that will bring us closer to concluding an agreement, rejecting CPS's months-long claim that it can't afford to devote any more resources to classrooms. These include recommendations to require CPS to maintain its equity staffing model, to hire 30 additional librarians in each year of the agreement, and to put additional funding into improving compensation for experienced teachers and PSRPs. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to CTU Attorney LaToya Kimbrough.
LaToya Kimbrough, Kimbrough. Crucially, the neutral fact finder recommended made recommendations only concerning staffing and salaries. While these are important issues, there were only 2 out of the 15 disputed issues that we submitted to fact finding. There is a series of other critical issues where the fact finder did not make recommendations, but instead remanded those issues back to the parties, such as teachers' evaluation, class size, elementary school day, PSRP issues, and several others. Due to these and a host of other necessary and just and equitable contract settlements being in need and us being in need of further bargaining, we have no choice but to reject the fact finder's recommendation. This is without a doubt the best fact finding report the parties has received since this became a part of the law 14 years ago. And CTU appreciates the fact finder for correctly concluding that CPS and their current financial state offer is lacking. But the improvements on staffing and salary the fact finders recommended are necessary, and the union hopes that it will be helpful in securing a better or spurring CPS to get serious at the table and move us toward contract settlements. But because of how the law is written, the fact finder could only look at a fraction of the facts and deal with a portion of the issues that are under negotiation. So we will be rejecting the report in order to follow its recommendation that we return to the bargaining table. Bargaining with just CEO Martinez's team has led to a stalemate because it hasn't been honest, because they haven't been honest with our union, with the press, or with the parents. He said the district could not afford to do more. The third-party arbitrator, his team agreed to have oversee the fact-finding process, says that's not true. He told members of the Board of Education that we're close to a settlement. And he told the press that they have a new roadmap that they gave us for settlement, when it was actually a U-turn and a reversal from the offers they had previously made and that we had tentatively accepted back in December. CEO Martinez was waiting for fact-finding. Well, fact-finding has happened and now it's over. CEO and his team, CEO Martinez and his team now need to show up differently to the table, and let's get this done. Thank you. Turn it back over to Stacy.
As has been customary in our press conferences, we wanted to have a bilingual portion as well. So we're going to do that. And then we'll close out, but I think I'll close out and then I'll hand off. You know, there's a seriousness in our society right now. There are lots of things happening in a very rapid, intense manner that have run counter to how society has worked, like abolishing the Department of Education, right? We have a landing space for this contract. We literally can get this done. If we look at the percentage points, we're apart, they're minuscule. If you look at some of the recommendations that the fact finder provides in terms of phase-ins and elevators, it's that too is doable. We need to get this done because we need a force field around the school district. Our collective bargaining agreement has served as an accountability document for the Chicago Public Schools. That accountability document will help enshrine the protections that we need. Thank God for the 2019 contract. A couple of weeks ago, parts of that contract came alive in the way that adults were organized and cohesive and thoughtful and directive and supportive, and the children that attend our schools. That is attributable to a collective bargaining process, a strike, a sacrifice that our members made to make that happen. Listen, we have a pathway. We also need to protect our special education students, our trans and queer students. We need to protect our ability to teach Black history and ethnic studies and women's studies. We need to be in a position where we do away with an evaluation system that makes it very hard for Black teachers to thrive in the Chicago public schools and become retired Chicago public school teachers, right? And there's a whole legacy of Black women in this city who are anchoring neighborhoods as retired teachers in the Chicago public schools. We want to rebuild those ranks, right? We don't just want to practice quote DEI. We want to create the type of society that our children deserve to live in. And we want to give them examples in front of them. When a Black teacher is in front of a classroom, Black children do well and every child does well. That is the power of that Black teacher in that Black classroom. Right now, we have an evaluation system that is biased against them almost exclusively. And it deprivileges our Black children. All of them, especially them though. We have to do away with that. We can't leave the table with an instrument like that still anchored to our collective bargaining agreement. It's not okay. And if no one's noticed, I am a Black teacher. That means something to me. And so I'm saying this to say that there is more that we should be protecting and fortifying and expanding than we are doing in this moment. And I'm calling our CEO, our Board of Education, our Mayor of Chicago, our parents, our families, our students. I am calling all of us to land this in the interest of our children. That is the filter that we are using with this, and we have a pathway. Next, I want to bring up Hilario Dominguez, who is a bilingual special education teacher.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, President Davis Gates. Hilario Dominguez, HILARIODOMINGUEZ, special education teacher born and raised in Pilsen to Mexican parents. We're hopeful that the CEO will change his tune with this report, but we're not going to wait on that. Our members stay ready so that we don't have to get ready. And so we're going to hold meetings with board members to brief them on our final differences at the table. This report has their name on it. So the CEO bargains on their behalf, right? So they have a responsibility to provide the leadership and the vision for what they want for our schools now that this isn't a question of priority. We're also going to continue to have community meetings. We're opening up the table so that Chicago can join us. We've had community meetings in 5 school districts across the city of Chicago. We're having another one today in the South Side and another one next week. We're also going to meet with the mayor's team and his labor department and the education staff so that they are also aware of what's come from the fact finder report. We're going to meet with aldermen and their staff, especially the ones on the education committee. Our members have toolkits so that they can continue to have meetings with parents. Like I said, we're going to continue to organize because that's what we do. And we're going to continue to fight to win the schools that our students deserve. Quickly in Spanish, I'll give a brief summary. Okay. Lo que este informe revela son 2 cosas. CPS ha tenido el dinero para ofrecer una mejor educación a nuestros hijos. La segunda, la razón por la que no lo ha hecho no es por falta de recursos, sino porque el CEO de CPS se niega a invertir en ellos. Lo que pedimos es lo mismo que cualquier madre o padre quiera para sus hijos. Clases más pequeñas, acceso a arte y música, clases de honor, una biblioteca en cada escuela. Solamente tenemos 20 escuelas con una biblioteca. Imagínense. El informe de verificación de hechos lo confirma. CPS ha tenido el dinero para ofrecer una mejor educación a nuestros hijos. Entonces, nosotros estamos aquí para organizar con los padres, con la comunidad, porque hay que ganar las escuelas que merecen nuestros hijos. Gracias.
Thank you. We'll take some questions. We're not. What do you mean vote? Man, people scab. No, there's no vote. Mm-mm. Look, there's no way we will ever accept a fact-finding report. The very basis of it leads to a rejection. Again, it is a document that it gives an incomplete picture of where bargaining is, though it provides some clarity depending on how you want to look at it. We believe for the first time ever that it does the thing that I think it does most clearly, most visibly, is because it is a document created to give a financial argument about bargaining. So they give a financial argument about bargaining, and the financial argument that they provide is that in every negotiating year, 12, 16, and 19, they say the same thing about not being able to afford it. And every year that we negotiate, 12, 16, 19, they afford it. And so their capacity to be less than honest about that and cause the strikes, because every year I just mentioned there was a strike. Like they're choosing confrontation in ways that is just unnecessary. Look, we've said from the very beginning, the 2019 contract provided the district with the infrastructure that has provided our young people an opportunity to recover, if you will. And the only reason why it happened is because of our collective bargaining agreement. Now, listen, what also helps is this new way in which they budget for our school district. That too is in this fact-finding report. In fact, a labor lawyer says that this equity-based funding model is actually something that they need to keep, for the duration of this collective bargaining agreement. But let me tell you where it falls short. It doesn't tell them not to lay off or furlough staff, right? It doesn't tell them to do that. So again, incomplete. So there are things that provide me with some optimism at the table that we can keep pushing along. But then, to be honest with you, it provides me with more optimism to have the conversations with our families and our members and our students about what we deserve, because it's affirming. It gives us an opportunity to put librarians, like specifically, back into our school communities. It's a damn shame that a labor lawyer got to tell a school district that's charged with educating children to do something like that, but here we are.
My question to you, this comes down. I have two questions. I want to piggyback off what you just said. Let's talk about the parents right now.
Mhm.
Hearing this fact finding, what we have to say, we're hearing your reactions to fact finding.
Fair enough.
Is looming, and there's a possibility that they're concerned that what can you tell the parents about? You say Martinez wanted this fact finding. This is what he wanted. We're here. We're now in February. April is around the corner. They're wondering, will you move forward with voting for a strike, or can we complete the school year and continue negotiations if it gets to that point?
I don't think so. Let's.
Can you tell parents at this point that they will complete the school year without the threat of a strike at this moment?
Parents are not going to read this fact-finding report and even think that that makes sense to them. They're going to read this fact-finding report and they're going to question why the CEO continues to give doomsday reporting vis-a-vis the budgeting, right? Wait, listen, just give me a moment. I know you haven't seen it yet, but but what I will say is, because look, we advised yesterday that we thought the fact-finding report would come, and we also advised that we thought that the report would be trash. Like we advised that yesterday, you know that, right? And so I'm just as dumbfounded, to be perfectly honest with you, reading through it myself, because I did not expect to read some of the things that I read. And so I am saying that I am first struck by this fact-finding report. One, because we've never had one that's read like this before, right? Number two, the specificity in which the fact finder is pushing a lot of the things that we believe need to happen. And then also the way in which it provides a pathway. Now, look, we don't agree with everything in it. And there are things in it that make a lot of sense in terms of moving this process ahead. If I'm a parent, because I am a parent, That's what occurs to me first, that there is a pathway for this. It also affirms what we've been saying about this process for a long time as well. We don't have a transparent partner on the other side of the table. And we haven't. We didn't have one in 12, we didn't have one in 16, and we didn't have one in 19. This says that every time they tell us that they can't pay for a contract, and every time that they do, and the fact finder actually affirms that. The fact finder also listens to the budget presentation of Chicago Public Schools and says, y'all can figure this out. Right. And not only can you figure it out, you can begin staffing schools with librarians. You can also make sure that, you know, what's another one? The librarians is, you know, my favorite part of it. But there are parts of this that, you know, the fact finder provides. Not only can you do it, but you can do it in this way as well. That's significant in the fact finding report. So forgive me if I'm kind of like dumbfounded and concentrating on something that I didn't think would happen. You know, this is really interesting. Yeah, really interesting.
You guys talked a little bit about how you can have a conversation with board members.
Yep.
And, you know, we know that a budget amendment requires 2/3 approval. And so what I'm curious about is what are you hearing from board members about doing that budget amendment? Do you think they align with you all on your study on the budgetary goals, or are they more reticent?
So I'm gonna do a teacher thing here. Who is you aligning with you? The children in Chicago who need smaller class sizes, the families that need their young people to have, you know, housing protections, right? Who are unhoused. Like, who is the you? See, the debate about this contract, it doesn't boil down to who has benefit or who receives benefit from it. This entire contract benefits the students that attend the Chicago Public Schools. So what we are negotiating is a benefit for the families who send their children there. There are things in this contract that go to them exclusively, right? So when we talk about having more fine arts education, there are young people who are going to benefit from an art class or a music class or a visual arts class. When we talk about a smaller class size, these are children that are going to benefit from more one-on-one focused instruction. When we talk about making sure that there's a teacher's assistant and a preschool room to make sure that young people are taken care of, it means that they're going to have a better, safer experience in that space. These are for those people, our students, our children, the families that choose Chicago Public Schools. We have to right size this debate because right now it's silly. It really is. It's like dun 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 dun. You know, like what this is not like WWF. And that's my age. It's WWE now, right? That's my age. But that's not what this is. It really is not. Like, and if your must-see TV is this conflict, Jesus Christ. So like, can we start talking about the things that are still on the table? We want to make sure we can still teach Black history because in Florida, they're teaching Black history on Sundays in churches, right? We want to do it Monday through Friday in our school district. That's what we want, right? That's what's still on the table. 2, I want a Black teacher to be able to teach Black history like I was able to teach Black history, right? That's still on the table. Those are the things we have to talk about because I need parents to say that they agree with those things. I need young people to say, yes, I need to learn about Black Reconstruction so I can understand the time period in which I'm living in right now and what it means to have a white backlash in a country in which I'm residing. And it's kind of scary, but we've been here before. And it is the resilience of Black people in times like that that help connect our country and not only connect it, transform and create. Remember, Reconstruction gives us public schools. Reconstruction gives us public health. It even gives us a Department of Justice, right? But they won't learn that if they don't have a teacher like Mr. Jordan, who told me from Kansas City, Missouri, that I could be anyone in this world that I wanted to be. He was my Black teacher, my social studies teacher, the reason why I'm one. He was my coach. He was my protector. He was a Black man who made sure that I trusted other Black men who mirrored the image of my daddy, my grandfather, my uncles. Like, that's what's on the table right now in the Chicago Public Schools and CTU debate. It's not none of this other stuff people are talking about. And I really wish we could get to the place of where we can talk about protecting our kids, because I saw some fierce ass teachers on the south side of Chicago a couple weeks ago wrap their arms around an entire community and give it calm. I watched them do it together with their principal, with the community groups, with the families. I watched it, and you know where they emanated from? Our collective bargaining agreement. It works. It protects children. It fortifies. It provides community. This fact finder says that CPS can afford it. So let's get it done.
Well, right, that's my question. So where does the board stand on?
Well, you know what's interesting about where does the board stand? You have to ask them because they submitted the fact finding report. But I bet you there's not a board member that you interviewed that can tell you anything about that fact finding report because they didn't really do the fact finding report. Unlike over here, all of these people can tell you everything that's in the fact finding report. They can give you chapter and verse because they write it. See, the process here is transparent and is kid-centered and it is consistent and it has been like this since the very beginning. We need a partner on the other end of this.
I have one from Nader and one from myself. So the one from Nader is that you guys
I need
said
some
the
water.
fact finders report was better than expected, and that CPS can afford more than they're letting out. But on financials, did the recommendations go as far as your demands, or did they fall somewhere in the middle?
You know, we're still evaluating what that continuum actually looks like. I'll take the top line on that. And my top line on that, and obviously there'll be other bullet points, but my top line on it is in, thank you, in 12 and 16 and 19, they said they couldn't afford it. That's what he's saying now too. And the fact finder says every time they said it, they afforded a contract. So I have a lot of optimism that they can afford this, like we've been saying all along. Look, their financial situation is better than it was in 12, than it was in 16, than it was in 19. We've also said that. Like, listen, we're also not crazy, right? We also know that the state of Illinois does not fund our schools in the way that it needs to, and that there are not only current costs to that, that there are legacy costs to that as well, right? We know that. We're not going to even let them off the hook either. What we want is a contract that is fair, that is reasonable, that is just. And that's all we've ever asked for. And they have room to provide that. And we got to get there. And we have to get there. Everything in this contract is going to benefit every student that attends the Chicago Public Schools. This contract is what governs the accountability of CPS to give an education. Case in point, in our special education article, Sarah, you know what we bargained for? The law. We bargained for them to implement special education law. We haven't even come up with anything innovative or creative except for the law. And you know why we bargained the law? Because our grievance process is faster than the legal process.
So my question is, I know that there's a temporary restraining order on the board to come into negotiations. Have you guys?
Which is interesting. So how did they, if they cannot participate in negotiations, how did they hand in a whole fact finder report? Ask them that and let us know, because we've been noodling over that over here. Can you hold this for me? Thank you.
So they've agreed to a briefing, and do you have any indication whether Martinez is okay with you guys directly briefing the board?
He can't, that's a public entity elected by people. Like, this ain't DC. Any more? Are we done? Thank you.
Good job.
Let's go.